Welcome to this week's edition of Flashback Friday, your opportunity to get some good review by listening to episodes from the past that Jason has handpicked to help you today in the present and propel you into the future. Enjoy.
This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Speakers, publishers, consultants, coaches, and info marketers unite. The Speaking of Wealth Show is your roadmap to success and significance. Learn the latest tools, technologies, and tactics to get more bookings, sell more products, and attract more clients. If you're looking to increase your direct response sales, create a big-time personal brand, and become the go-to guru, the Speaking of Wealth Show is for you. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
Hey, it's my pleasure to welcome Doug Sandler to the show. He's a nice guy. Well, at least you can decide whether he's a nice guy or not. He is host of the Nice Guys on Business podcast, and he's an author and a speaker, just an all-around nice guy. So, Doug, welcome. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me on the show. I'll do my best to be a mean guy today. How about that?
All right. Sounds good. Your alter ego. You know, everybody's got one. Give our listeners a sense of geography. Tell us where you're located.
So I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, and although I speak all over the country, my home base has been here in D.C. for the last many years. I grew up in Baltimore and moved to D.C. Shortly, just a little bit ago, but love this area, East Coast.
Good stuff. Tell us about the Nice Guys podcast, how you came to do it, what kind of things you're profiling, and your philosophy based on personal branding and relationship marketing and so forth. Let's dive into that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I started the podcast as an end result of just needing another channel. I felt like, okay, well, I've written a book and that's getting out there, and I'm doing some speaking and that's doing great. But there was this whole world that was unknown to me called podcasting. A friend of mine, Strickland, and we decided to put together a podcast back in February. And I've been surprised at how well it's been received. I think my biggest concern is just how to build my audience. So the more shows I go on in other podcasts, I find that I'm picking up, 10, 20 more downloads. Or I don't know if it's even important to know how many downloads you have. Maybe it's just a matter of the message you're putting out. Eventually, I think we talked about this a little bit before, just organically having it grow. So we're just trying to figure it out, but loving it in the process.
Yeah, well, I love podcasting. I think it helps you really refine your ideas, build that audience. And, you don't need to have big numbers, amazingly, to have a really successful business and successful podcast. I think you're doing the right thing. You're just focusing on that organic growth. That's the really high quality type of listener, the one who finds you. So that's good. Tell us about your background as to, why you started it and what your philosophy is around business and nice guys concept. I guess you have a big background in the hospitality industry, right?
Yep. Well, my background is in entertainment, and it was within the hospitality industry. I am, believe it or not, a bar mitzvah MC, and I started doing that about 30 years ago. And I discovered that I was getting business not because I was a better MC, a better guy at running a party than anybody else, but I was definitely better at helping my clients arrive at event day, which is oftentimes a year and a half or 2 years in the planning, helping them arrive at event day anxiety-free. So even though I may not have been the best at one party day, and I do a great job on party day, no doubt, but I really focused more on the relationship. And I found that I was winning customers at a higher percentage than my competition was. We all share the same agent oftentimes. So, they would always be, hey, Doug got another one. And I was never that young, cool, hip guy. I was always that nerdy, older guy. They just thought, just luck of the draw, he's just sticking to it a little bit longer. So the whole philosophy of Nice Guys Finish First really developed out of the customer service and the sales strategies and systems I put together in this MC world. A few years ago, my financial planner said to me, don't be nervous, but 3 years ago, I was 47. He said, don't be nervous, but in a few years, you're going to be 50. And turn around and look at the guy that's next closest to you. He's probably in his early to mid 20s. He said, you're doing a great job. He said, just be on the lookout of whatever that next step is. And so I wrote a book as a result. I started a speaking platform as a result. I wanted to take my entertainment background and take it to a different audience. So while the entertainment side of things still remains in my speech, The message is obviously different. I'm no longer playing games, or I am playing games with kids because I still am working as an MC, but the end result is I am out there speaking in the corporate world about building relationships, inspiring your clients to take action, executing a plan excellently, investing time and energy and resources in your clients. So that really is, in a nutshell, the overall process of how my system works.
Do you perceive that the world, the business world especially, is becoming less and less ethical over the past, 15, 20 years?
I think what's happened is there is a certain amount of transparency that is just organic in our world today because of technology. So while I would say I find as though there are a number of people that aren't quite as ethical or moral or have the right practices that I would have, I think they're under a microscope a lot more now that social media is as prevalent as it is. I always tell everybody, every company that goes out there, and you're, I'm sure, very aware of this, acutely aware of this since writing a book in the late 90s about, building a brand and understanding what a brand is all about. If you are not doing the right thing, it's just a matter of time before people find out about it. So consistently also building a reputation, becoming a trustworthy person, being a person that's building winning relationships. I'd rather have a customer for life. I'd rather do more stuff with the customers that I have than try to win over a new customer. And the way to do that is just build these exemplary relationships with them.
Okay, so Doug, take us through some of the mechanics, if you would, of the nice guy philosophy. The age-old question is, do nice guys finish last or do nice guys finish first? And what do they do? What are the specific traits and mechanics of the nice guy? I'm sure you would say nice guys finish first. So maybe first of all, start by telling us why that's true.
I really did condense it into a very compact, very easy system to learn. And it's right available on my website at DougSandler.com. But there is a free system, and it's called the NG30, the Nice Guy 30. It's 5 steps to doing that. One of them, are you ready? It's all going to be brain surgery, rocket science right here. Return your phone calls. Okay, let's start with that one. Most people just don't return their phone calls. Return them in a timely fashion. Return all of your emails. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. These are things that are just common sense. Be on time every time, not just every once in a while, but be on time every time. And then the fifth thing, the thing that really separates that nice guy from the rest of the pack, is reaching out and connecting just because. You don't have to have a business reason to reach out to a client. You can reach out to a client just to say, hey, I hope you're having a great day. So be on time every time, return your calls, return your email. Overpromising and underdelivering is not going to work for you. And reach out, twice a day to randomly to contacts in your life. So those 5 steps are really the foundation for how do you truly become a nice guy in 30 days, according to my definition of what a nice guy is.
Most of those are self-evident, but give us some tips on the reaching out idea. I think many people, yours truly included, they kind of think about other people in their life and business and so forth, but they don't know what to reach out to them for. Am I bothering them? There's nothing specific,
Aren't all those things great? And I say that tongue in cheek, but I wrote this blog probably a little less than a year ago. And I'm very fortunate that I have the position of writing for the Huffington Post also in there as a blogger, and have been doing that for about the last year. And this was one of the most popular blogs that I wrote. It said the name of the blog was 24 Seconds That Will Change Your Life. And if you consistently send out 2 random messages every day to people, and I was sending these out back in the late 80s when text messages used to cost 75 cents a piece to send out. If you send out 2 messages a day, all you need to do is do this. Hope you're having a great day. XOXO if you're me, because I'm an XOXO kind of guy. Hope you're having a great day. XOXO thinking about you. Hit send. Don't even think about discussing business. A couple of things are going to happen that will be very telling very quickly. Number one, you're going to get it. And if you do this through text, which is, I think, the easiest way to do it, if you get a message back that says, who is this? You're not texting enough and you're not getting out to people enough. If you get a message back that says something like, hey, that was great. I really appreciate that. Thinking about you also. That's terrific. That's the person that you've just, again, enforced and made a little bit more concrete the relationship. If you get a message back that says something like, is everything okay? Again, that means you're only dealing with people when there's an emergency in your life. So you quickly will be able to develop a foundation of understanding of who you are to these people. It may either be somebody that they don't know you because you don't send them enough messages. You're only reaching out if something is wrong in your life, or if you get that final message, that message that says, "Hey, I'm doing great. I appreciate you reaching out. I've been thinking about you too." That's the one you're looking for. Now, I've been doing this every day for probably the last 15 or 20 years. And what's happened is, on those days, and we all have these days, Jason, I'm sure even a successful, positive guy like yourself has these days where you're just not feeling 100%. You're going to get messages from people all over the world they're in Peru and they're on vacation with their family, and they send you a message and they're like, "Hey, Jason, I'm in Peru. I wanted to take this wonderful picture of this river and this scenic view for you. Hope you're having a great day. Talk to you soon." And all we're doing in life, aren't we just really just building relationships with people?
Oh, yeah.
I know that we know all this stuff about business, and you know about real estate, and I know about customer service, and we all have all these products that we like to puke. But don't we really just want to be important to other people? And don't other people just really want to be important to us? So that's what I've really built my system on, is building those human connections.
Sure, that's great. Talking a little bit more about those mechanics, when you talk about reaching out, Doug, what do you think the best platform is for that? Is it doing it on social media? Is it through an email, a text message, a phone call, posting something on their Facebook page? I remember a friend of mine, and I just kind of love this. She just, I hadn't talked to her in a while. She just wrote on my Facebook wall, "Hey, just stopping by to say hi."
Yeah.
I thought that was really kind of neat. Felt old-fashioned,
So for you, that was the proper channel for her to reach out to you. I would say things like, I'm sure you're on Twitter, and I am as well. If I get a direct message from somebody, I don't even look at it most of the time. So that may not be the channel for it. But maybe people are totally into, direct messaging on Twitter. Some people are very, very involved with their phone. And so sending out a text message to somebody, if you have a relationship with a client and text messaging isn't appropriate, I would say it probably wouldn't be an appropriate way to send them a message. So you select your channel. Just like when you are promoting your brand, you have to be aware of the areas, the channels that your brand is most effective and how it is effective within that channel.
Okay, makes sense. So answering that question is very contextual, it sounds like.
Yeah, for me, I love text messaging because it's really quick. It's to the point. It often is somebody gets right back to me. So for me, I would say from a priority perspective, and all of my clients expect text messages from me. So for me, text messaging is great. And all of my friends expect text messages. So text messaging is great. Instant messaging on Facebook is also a really good way. Posting on somebody's wall does a great job for you because not only does that person see it, but their entire network sees your message to them as well. Phone calls are great, but I hate to interrupt somebody in the middle of their day just to say hi unless there's some purpose. I only have one ground rule with that entire process. It's that you're not allowed to discuss business unless that person brings it up first. So again, for me, it's just a matter of all I want to do is stay on top of mind. When they're hiring a speaker, people that are speaking, they always want to be the first person, in any business, I would have to say, you always want to be the first person that you're thought of when, who can I get to do this? Well, that should be Doug. And that's what I want to be.
Interesting points there, definitely. And I agree with you. I think the phone is quite a primitive tool, to be honest with you. It's like a total interruption tool. It's like when Seth Godin did his first book, talked all about interruption marketing. That's what the phone is. The phone is just a total interrupter. It's just not a very good tool.
I don't even expect people to answer the phone when I call them anymore. It's like I'm ready to talk to their voicemail. I'm always surprised when somebody picks up the phone.
Right, yeah. Yeah, well, that's an interesting point, definitely. Talk to us about some of these chapter heads in your book about how nice guys use systems, they create consistent patterns. I'd love to hear about empowering others because we haven't talked about that yet. Let's dive into some of those points.
Great. In some of the chapter titles, like Nice Guys Building Trust, some of them seem to be common sense, just like returning phone calls is common sense. But why is it that people don't want to work harder on building trust with people? The empowering others, nice guys empower others. I say that as a result of we can't do all of this on our own. I asked you a question a little bit earlier about scheduling or your website and all that before we hit the record button here. And what's interesting about it is you have put the people in place that are probably experts in those fields. you don't want to have to build at least this is how I am. I don't want to have to build my own website. So I'm going to bring in somebody to do my website. Leaders are very, very good at understanding when it's time to let go. Organizations are only going to grow so big and so grand if the leader needs to make all the decisions. So very, very important, at least in my opinion, for somebody to understand the importance of delegating and letting some of the decision-making capacity go, especially when it comes to resolving problems with customers. In order to build a brand big, or one of the ways to do that is to make sure you're being very, very customer-centric, very customer-focused. Letting the people that are actually dealing with your customers make decisions will provide your customer a reason to want to contact and call back rather than this is a pain in the rear end. I don't want to have to call this company to resolve a problem. And mistakes are going to happen, through the course of building a business. It really is what happens next that really counts. So that's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm discussing, empowering others.
So when you say empower others, it sounds like you're talking more about your own team, your own staff, your employees or virtual assistants, giving them authority and being willing to delegate. Is that your focus when you say that?
That was the channel that I was heading down when I was thinking about empowering others. There's probably other opportunities to empower others as a part of your life. But for me, when you're building a business, if you want to build it bigger, you do it through helping. And I'm a solopreneur. I'm a guy that is, I don't have a staff. I don't have 30 people that I have at my beck and call, but I need people. I need to know that I can trust someone and build a relationship with somebody enough that if they have to make a decision for me, that they don't have to call me back and say, hey, Doug, we're thinking about this. What do you think? I even empower some of my clients to make their own decisions rather than calling me as, the ultimate consultant is a guy that's willing to be asked the question. And the customer almost can guess what the answer that I'm going to provide based upon the knowledge that I've already given them as a consultant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Any questions that I haven't asked you, anything that you just like to point out to our listeners?
You're in the world of branding. You're in the world of business. You're in the world of marketing. You know all about finance and all those other things. The hard part about building a business is just kind of knowing everything. I don't know it all. And I'm trying to figure this part out as I'm building this business. I don't know who to go to sometimes when I am struggling for something. How do you build a business? How do you find a market? How do you find customers? There's so many different questions. How do you learn to trust people that are out there? So I don't know necessarily that there's a question that you haven't asked me, but I can tell you, honestly, I'm going through it. I'm a normal guy building my business, been successful over the last 30 years of doing it, haven't had to rely upon anybody for a paycheck other than myself, and I love that. I have to think that I just haven't lucked into it, but I just can't put my finger on what I've done in order to do it, which is why I wrote the book. It's just my story.
Do you have any examples that you'd like to share? And I know I may be putting you on the spot with this one, so it's okay if you can't think of one off the top of your head, of just sort of companies, could say individuals if you want, but maybe the listeners won't know who they are, that sort of embody these principles, just so we can have maybe a role model or two.
Sure. Well, absolutely. And what's really interesting about it is these are probably the same companies that everybody uses when it comes in, and that's because they've done such an excellent job of branding themselves. You deal with a company like Zappos, and I've visited their headquarters in Las Vegas, their call center in Las Vegas, and understand this
I've been there too and met Tony Shea, and yeah, it's a pretty wild environment.
It's incredible.
And they got some weird management philosophies going on there.
Yeah, right now they have the no manager philosophy.
Yeah, I don't know about that, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know about it either, but it's an interesting theory. But their idea is if a customer calls in and they say, hey, can you help me? I don't know how to spell the word asparagus. It's not like they're going to say, why are you calling me to spell the word asparagus? I mean, they literally, I was in Las Vegas. They said, hey, try it. So I tried it. So I picked up the phone when I was in Las Vegas and I called them and I said, hey, I'm staying at Caesars, but my internet connection is not working. Can you tell me what the closest pizza place is? And the guy just went on his computer. He Googled pizza near Caesars, and he told me the name and the phone number of the pizza place that's close by.
The funny thing is, though, those are funny corporate folklore stories, of course. They're really interesting. And FedEx has a few like that, and, a lot of these great companies do.
Yep.
But the guy had to just be like, sort of harassing the Zappos rep, right? Because everybody's got a smartphone nowadays, pretty much. Certainly if they're in Las Vegas, they probably do, right?
Absolutely.
Why couldn't he look that up himself, right?
Those are the stories and those are the folklore. But I will tell you that if I were today to pick up the phone and call my health insurance company, I would even be lucky to speak to a person, let alone talk to somebody that would be helpful.
Right, yeah.
So when I tell you a story about a pizza delivery, I tell it not as the example of this is the crazy thing that we do. And I'll pick on this company for just a moment. And I love them as a provider of service, Squarespace. They've created my website. But they don't have a phone number for me to call. Well, as a person that doesn't want to necessarily always deal with technology, how is it that I'm able to actually talk to another human being? Mm-hmm. So a company like Zappos that goes above and beyond for customer service. I've stayed at the Ritz-Carlton at many, many times in my career in going out and speaking. And personally, I've spent time there as well. The ladies and gentlemen of the Ritz-Carlton. That's what they call each other. That's what they call them, yeah. Right. Because that's who they are. They're ladies and gentlemen. They've been given
they're not just ladies and gentlemen. They're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. And my understanding, I haven't put this into practice, but each person is given the decision-making capacity of up to $2,000 to make a decision that will improve the stay of a customer at their hotel.
$2,000.
Right. So a decision that would take them $2,000, I actually sat in on a planning meeting when what they were trying to do was to improve the customer experience while reducing the cost. I could tell you a long story about how that happened, but the end result is the idea behind it is customer experience is at the top of the list. There are so many companies that don't put customer experience at the top of the list. And Nordstrom's is the final example that I'll use. I've many times gone to Nordstrom's to return things that have been beaten up pretty good by me, but knowing their return philosophy.
Or you take tires there. More folklore.
I haven't taken any tires there, but I have taken shoes there. And you know how challenging it may be to return shoes. But without question, they've taken shoes back. So those three companies, and why do they stand out? Because it's not just like they say that they're going to do this. My cable company wants to deliver high quality service and they want to deliver it at a good price. But they've missed out on both of those things. They're not delivering it at a good price and they're not delivering high quality service. Anybody that's going to tell me I need to be home between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. is not delivering service.
It gets worse, or it might be 5 p.m. and then they never show up on time anyway.
And then they don't show up.
Right.
And what accountability is there? And there are a number of companies. So what I would tell you is the challenge is for me that people say it, but they don't do it. And you need to do it 100% of the time. We need to all be consistent. So
Doug, I want to propose this question to you. It's something I recently posted on my Facebook page. And I said, why is it that companies like airlines, cable companies, and I can't remember the other example.
That's okay.
Why can't they be more like Apple and Nordstrom, right? And the answer seemed to really come to one factor that made the difference. Actually, mortgage companies, too. Why is it that mortgage companies, airlines, and cable companies, or really any utility company, they suck? They're terrible, okay? They are rotten, terrible companies that nobody likes dealing with. You know that when there's a Seinfeld episode of the cable guy that doesn't show up, you know it's bad. You know that's like the end of the world, right? And why is it, right? Compared to Apple, Nordstrom, Amazon, okay? Compare it to those, right? The common thread seems to be the unions. The companies that are bad are heavily unionized, not completely, but they're union-oriented. And the companies that are not union-oriented. That's just an interesting point, I think.
First of all, I didn't know that. But second, I would say I don't agree.
Okay.
The reason I don't agree is because I think it's a matter of giving the people that are dealing with the customers decision-making capacity. My insurance company, I don't think they're unionized. Blue Cross and Care First, they suck.
Okay.
And I've blasted them on social media. It was only when I put them in front of the social media, and I have a pretty good following on Twitter, it was only when I held them under the microscope of my social media network did they finally call me back.
So there's one other factor, of course, and it's that they have these semi-government sponsored monopolies, right? The bad companies.
Doesn't mean that they can't make decisions They can't empower their people that are dealing with their customers. What does it mean when you're going to elevate this to the next level? What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I'll escalate it for you. And then you can wait on hold for the next guy for 10 minutes.
Right. I'm going to escalate this. We need to look into this further. How about we're going to do everything that we possibly can to resolve? If I got somebody that was on the other side of the phone that would say, I need to get this to my manager. However, just know this, Doug, I'm going to do everything that I can, and I'm going to be personally responsible, and I will call you back. I couldn't even get them to give me an extension to reach the person that I needed to. These are the things that frustrate me to the nth degree. But also, let's take it to a simpler level. Going to a local 7-Eleven and buying gas and wanting to get a Slurpee or a candy bar and having somebody behind the counter that's so wrapped up in their telephone, their cell phone, that they can't even make eye contact with me, or at my doctor's office and the physician entering my history into the computer, being interrupted 2 times and not even having the courage to look me in the eye and say, hey, I realize that you're hurting right now. We're going to do everything we can. She's so busy entering stuff into the computer, she forgot I'm a human being on the other end of that diagnosis. And we all just need to be paid attention to. That's all I want as a customer. I'm just looking for somebody to, can you just love me a little bit more? Put down your effing script. And just be involved with me as a human.
That's what blows my mind with mortgage companies. They're dealing with giant assets. And we saw millions and millions of Americans just strategically default on their loans in the last financial crisis. You call up your mortgage company and they got the Philippine call center reading a script. It's unbelievable. I mean, you can almost understand it for the crappy airlines because you're talking to them about a $300 ticket, but here you're talking to them about a $400,000 loan. I mean, and they can't even have like a real person.
I agree that the loan, that they should be a little bit more on top of it. But again, I got to go back to, well, you have Southwest. I normally get
Southwest is great. I love Southwest.
Great, but they're still dealing with the same $300 crappy fare.
That's the interesting point, though. It's certainly an element of culture, and I'd say it's the government-sponsored monopoly, the culture, and the unionization. I think those are really the 3 factors. The culture being the good or bad one, depending on the cable company. Their attitude is, why should we? Who cares? This is not our focus. We have a monopoly. All we got to worry about is Dish Network and AT&T. Otherwise, we've got the monopoly. So who cares? Right? It's crazy. It's a sad state of affairs, my friend.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you very much.
But you know what? The great thing is, us talking about this, social media, the word is getting out. Companies can't hide forever. They got to step up their game ultimately. So I think it's moving in the right direction, albeit slowly.
I agree with you. I think that it does take longer than we all want it to move. It is moving in the right direction. And if guys like you and me keep pounding the pavement and pushing this message that it's all about service, it's all about branding, even if you work for a large company, there is a personal brand at stake as well, in addition to the fact that you work for Care First. Don't you have any pride in you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you have pride in you, I think if everybody takes pride in them and they don't take on the 2 predominant moods in corporate America, I can speak to specifically today, resignation and resentment. Everybody is so resigned that nothing is going to happen good, and everybody is so resenting their boss and their coworkers for getting the raise or being the tyrant that they forget it's about communication, camaraderie, cooperation, the important words like that.
Doug, give out your website one more time and tell people where they can find you.
Sure. If they want to hit my website, it's DougSandler.com. That's a pretty easy one. If they want my book, that would be great. It's Nice Guys Finish First, and that's available right on Amazon.com. Just Nice Guys Finish First, the one by Doug Sandler.
Doug Sandler, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jason.
This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company, all rights reserved. For distribution or publication rights and media interviews, please visit www.hartmanmedia.com or email media@hartmanmedia.com. Nothing on this show should be considered specific personal or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and the host is acting on behalf of Platinum Properties Investor Network, Inc. exclusively.